In the quiet rural town of Grover's Ridge, nestled in the dense woods of southern Ohio, there was an old legend that most locals dared not speak of. The tale was whispered among school children, incautiously avoided by adults. It centered around a haunted bathroom in the abandoned Rally House, an unassuming two-story building that sat half-hidden behind tall oaks on the edge of town. The bathroom was said to be cursed, a place where reality warped, and a darkness that could never be fully explained lingered. The Rowley house had been empty since 1984, the year the last family to live there. The Weavers vanished overnight. All that was left were rumors of the horrors they might have faced, and one chilling truth. Every family who'd lived there since 1910 had reported strange occurrences in the bathroom, the only room that appeared untouched by time, retaining fixtures and a mirror as old as the house itself. No one ever stayed in that house for long, and after the Weavers disappeared, the house had remained unoccupied. Over the years, it decayed, becoming a specter of its former self. Yet the bathroom somehow stayed pristine. On a rainy October evening in 2024, a group of teenagers dared each other to break into the house and spend the night. Among them was Sam, a skeptic who scoffed at ghost stories. Her friends, Carla, Jake, and Thomas, were equally dubious, but couldn't resist the lure of proving their courage. They crept through the overgrown weeds, flashlight beams dancing off cracked windows, and finally pried open the door. Dust hung thick in the air as they entered, and the scent of mildew overwhelmed them. Still they pressed on. Inside, the old house creaked, but it was silent. Otherwise, the walls were marked with grime and old, tattered furniture lay scattered across rooms. The friends explored cautiously, passing empty rooms with peeling wallpaper and sagging ceilings. When they finally found the bathroom, on the second floor, they felt a chill they couldn't explain. It looked as though it had been frozen in time. The bathroom was spotless, its white-tiled floors gleaming under the flashlight. A clawfoot tub rested beneath a frosted window, and the sink bore an intricate porcelain design. But what caught their attention most was the mirror. It was large, framed in ornate silver, almost beautiful in its haunting way. Yet the air felt heavier as they looked into it, their faces reflecting back with unsettling clarity. As they stared into the mirror, Carla suddenly gasped. Her own reflection was smiling, but her face in the mirror had an unnatural gleam in its eyes, a sinister expression she wasn't making herself. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Backing away, the others laughed it off, nervously teasing her, but Sam lingered, transfixed by the mirror. She felt a strange pull, as if the mirror was calling her, luring her to look deeper. When she finally broke her gaze, she shivered, realizing how cold the room had become. Hours passed, and after exploring other parts of the house, they decided to settle in. A makeshift camp on the floor outside the bathroom. Just as they started to relax, a faint dripping noise echoed from within. They peered through the door, seeing nothing out of the ordinary, but the drip, drip, drip continued, almost like footsteps. Sam suggested checking the bathroom pipes, hoping a rational explanation would ease their nerves. She approached the sink, leaning in to examine the faucet. It was completely dry, yet the dripping sound grew louder. Carla stepped back, glancing at the mirror again. This time all four of them saw it. Faint ghostly shapes began to emerge, like figures, obscured by fog drifting just behind their reflections. One figure, a tall woman with hollow, Empty eyes seemed to step closer, her lips parting in a silent scream. The teenagers stumbled back, clutching each other. What? What was that, Thomas? Stammered his face pale Jake, trying to keep his composure. Joked, it's just old glass. It's warped or something. But Sam wasn't convinced. She felt a deepening sense of dread, a feeling that they were intruding on something ancient, something that didn't want them there. The mirror almost seemed alive, drawing them closer despite their fear. The whisper of a cold breeze drifted past her ear, and she thought she heard a faint voice, like someone pleading, "Help me." Sam looked around and startled, but the others hadn't heard it. Just as she tried to shake off the feeling, the bathroom door slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic erupted and they pounded on the door, yelling for help that no one would hear. In this deserted part of town, the temperature dropped even further, and the room filled with an oppressive silence, heavy as lead. They realized that the only light came from the mirror, which now glowed with an unnatural, sickly green hue. The figures in the glass grew clearer, each one with a look of despair etched onto their faces. It was as though they were all trapped within the mirror, reaching out, begging for release. The ghostly woman stepped forward, pressing her hands against the glass, as though trying to break through. Her mouth moved, forming words, and Sam could just make out the plea, "Let me out before it takes you to." With a horrified realization, Sam whispered, "There, trapped in the mirror." A laugh, cold and mocking, filled the room. The laughter didn't come from any of them. It echoed from the mirror itself, as though some dark, malicious entity lurked within. The room seemed to spin, and the teens felt themselves pulled toward the mirror, as though it were a black hole, the vortex ready to devour them. Suddenly, they noticed faint scratches on the bathroom walls. By the light of the mirror, Sam traced them with her fingers, horrified to see words scratched into the tile. "They can't leave." The scratches were fresh, etched by hands desperate to be heard. Carla's eyes filled with terror, as she pointed to the claw marks beside the words. "Those are human," she whispered, her voice trembling. A faint whisper emanated from the mirror, filled with venom and a chilling clarity. "Join us." The bathroom light flickered, and they could barely breathe. From the weight of fear pressing down on them, Sam, desperate to break the mirror, grabbed a loose piece of tile from the floor, raising it above her head. But as she brought it down, an invisible force held her back, freezing her arm in midair. The mirror reflected her wide, terrified eyes back at her. But the face staring at her wasn't her own. It was a twisted version of herself with dark, soulless eyes and a smile that dripped malice. The laughter grew louder, filling the air with a mocking cacophony. Carla screamed, unable to bear it any longer, and the mirror's surface rippled like water. The ghostly woman appeared again, but this time she was closer, her hand reaching through the glass. She grabbed Carla's wrist, her grip icy and unyielding. Carla felt herself being pulled toward the mirror, and her friends grabbed onto her, trying to hold her back. But the mirror's pull was too strong. One by one they were dragged closer, their feet sliding helplessly across the tile floor. Sam's heart raced, and she fought with everything she had, but it felt as though her very soul was being drained, absorbed by the mirror's dark energy. Desperation took hold, and she screamed, "Let us go in an instant." The grip loosened, and they stumbled backward. The mirror's glow faded, and the figures in the glass dissipated. leaving only their own reflections. Pale and shaken, they scrambled to their feet, pulling the door open and fleeing the house without a backward glance. They didn't stop running until they reached the safety of the town. Gasping for breath and hearts pounding with terror, they never spoke of that night again, each haunted by nightmares they couldn't explain, memories of faces and whispers they wished they could forget. But something lingered in each of their minds, a question that gnawed at them. Who was the woman, and what evil had taken root in that bathroom? Months later, a new family moved into Grover's Ridge, oblivious to the house's haunted past. But within days, they too would hear the stories about the haunted bathroom. And late one night, the young daughter of the family ventured into it. Drawn by the glow of the mirror, she stood before it, staring at her reflection, and her face twisted into a chilling smile. The darkness had claimed another, and the mirror's whispers continued, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to enter its gaze.